who take pleasure in twilight, whose souls are lured by noise to every treacherous abyss.
As night falls, another Austin emerges, almost as though another city exists in an alternate dimension.
Because last night, the weirdest thing happened.
And in that world exists the underbelly of crime, drugs, and terror in the night. In the deep night, there is terror of women being raped, the sexual abuse of small children, gangs and drug kings.
I actually think this whole flap, whatever the Russians may have intended with their hacking, has made it much more...
In my line of work, you got to keep repeating things over and over and over again.
When you hear General Mack
for the truth to sink in.
The CIA director,
to kind of catapult the propaganda.
Hardliners on
14-foot cobra with 9-inch fangs, firing lasers out of the size of 17-gun zones, shooting flying saucers out of them.
I have two words for you. Predator drones.
I'm gonna bomb the shit out of them.
You will never see it coming.
I don't care.
So you understand the words I'm saying to you?
You think I'm joking?
Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is that there are known knowns and that there are known unknowns. But there's also unknown unknowns. Things we don't know that we don't know.
They are not what they claim to be.
America is now under martial law.
PsiOp Radio.
Decoding the psychological warfare machinations within paranormal and parapolitical landscapes. PsiOp Radio.
All right, folks. This is Smiles Lewis.
And this is Mack White.
And we are coming to you live from Austin, Texas, and points north. This is
up here.
What episode is it, Mac?
Yeah, I forget. Which number is it?
I believe we're up to
233. That's an interesting number.
Yeah, we were just about to do this show several weeks ago, and unfortunately. Had to scrub it due to technical difficulties, but here we are, thankfully, together again, and I'm so happy to be with you, my friend.
It's great to be talking to you again. I'm glad we're able to do a show again, and wow, have we ever got a lot happening these days. But we're maintaining social distance as we do this show. I'm up here in Fort Worth. You're down there in Austin. That's about 190 miles. So
yeah,
I think we're going to be okay.
I'll sneeze into my armpit if I have to, just to keep you safe. I'm not talking through a mask, though.
The photo you put up of the Stevie Ray Vaughan statue in Austin wearing a mask is hilarious.
Yeah, there are, of course, a number of these pictures online of the famous Stevie Ray Vaughan statue right downtown on the south shore of the Colorado River, Lake Travis, whatever the heck you want to call it, the waterway that pools between the north and south sides.
Yeah.
And yes, he's got a white bandana on. Yeah. And there's in the background is the glass Jenga building, the building that's all strangely coming out on different sides and looks all strange, and that people hate because of the crown, not quite visible in the picture that's showing right now, but there's a crown on the top that looks like an unfinished scaffolding that is in fact just the grating surrounding the HVAC system on the roof, and apparently it upsets a lot of people. It's like, oh, what a nice shiny new sci-fi looking building, but then you've got this unfinished part to it. And in the picture that's up right now, there's also two cranes in the background and several new downtown buildings that you probably have never seen, Mac. I don't. It's been
it's been a long time. It's been a long time. I think it was 2, maybe 3 years ago. We drove through Austin, coming back from San Antonio one evening after this. Texas Tales Illustrated received an award from the San Antonio Conservation Society. We're driving back through it, and I have to tell you, I hadn't been gone that long from Austin, 2 years maybe, I don't know, losing track of time. and I almost didn't recognize the skyline then. It's just amazing. And the traffic, of course, terrible. It was always, actually, there was a time when Austin didn't have bad traffic. That was back in the 70s, 80s, and it was straight downhill from there. But we were talking a couple of nights ago. I mentioned that my friend down there, Patrick Deasy, used to work there at Fringeware, great bookstore and meeting place, long gone, unfortunately, like a lot of things in Austin, long gone. And, I had posted something on Facebook about how, I'm hearing traffic going constantly on I-20 here in Fort Worth. I mean, we're on the south side of Fort Worth and close enough to hear the traffic. And it never stops. It hasn't stopped once. And I just thought that interesting. And Patrick, wrote and said, but here in Austin, around midnight, I-35 is like a ghost town. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah. I've said to you and others that, and I think I maybe said this in the last episode, that it is a rare treat, like right now, or it was. Now it being Memorial Weekend, everybody is out in full force. It's pretty crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of risk taking, but it's been amazing.
Yeah.
It's been like driving in Austin back in the 70s and the 80s, and it's been a pleasure. Wow. Really appreciated. I mean, it's a pleasant side effect of this dark and scary situation. And our backyard, as wonderful and nice as it is, watching the fireflies and whatnot, it's always had a roar from I-35, and we're not that close to I-35, but it's close enough that the sound wafts over, and it hasn't really diminished that much either. But we certainly have, as you had also noted, seen and heard far fewer aircraft. So.
Yes. Twice recently I have sat out in the backyard smoking a cigar late at night. Well, not that late. Something I haven't done in a long time. I smoked my last one last night. I'm sitting out there, and I'm realizing, the traffic on I-20 sounds just as loud as it ever did, but there's no aircraft up ahead. It used to be I'd sit out there and I'd watch the, jetliners coming over from DFW Airport or smaller planes, and there's nothing happening up there. And it's weird. It's eerie. It's kind of pleasant, but also eerie.
Yeah.
And it's eerie going out. We were talking, too, about how really this lockdown, hasn't changed our lifestyles, mine and Diane, that much, because we were under lockdown anyway, just because we're reclusive and we'd like to stay at home. And we only get out about every 3 or 4 days. And we were doing curbside pickup at the grocery store a long time ago, before it became popular, before it became cool. And it hasn't changed things that much for us, except that when I have to go out to do a curbside pickup or whatever, you can't stay indoors. Tomorrow I got to go to the post office. I'm more nervous than usual. It makes me nervous anyway, driving or going anywhere. I'm very, like I say, agoraphobic, and I've made peace with it. But right now, going out, you don't know what you're going to see.
You might run into an old friend. I seem to recall you.
Yes, I did. David Curley, an old friend. We go back for decades. Excuse me. I went to the wine shop, and thankfully they're open. Now, that is an essential service if there ever was one. And he was calling me. I didn't know. I didn't recognize him. We were on Facebook together. We hadn't seen each other in years. And I thought I heard my name Mack being called, but I ignored it. I thought, well, surely I misheard that. And I go welcome back to the car to get my surgical because I forgot my mask. And I go back, and on the way back, he hollers out again. He just come out of the store, and it's David Curley. So a shout out to David if he's listening. so that was nice.
Yeah.
And went with another friend to Home Depot. A friend down there in Cleveland, Cade, who is doing some home repair work for us off and on. So we drove to Home Depot and, had to maintain 6 feet social distance, which you can't do. It's impossible. I mean, people are struggling to do it. I once in a while, I do have to go inside some store, maybe inside whatever, pick up a prescription or something. And they got all these, X's taped out on the floor,
6 feet.
Almost nobody can follow them. Yeah, and half the people are wearing the mask, half of them aren't. I'm wearing mine, and I'm constantly having to readjust it, which means I'm constantly touching my face, which makes it useless. So, but people get screamed at if they're not wearing their mask. And my sister walked into, she'd run quickly into the convenience store in Dallas, and oh no, the clerk behind the counter screamed at her, "Get your mask on!"
Wow.
So she ran back. So she ran back and got her mask.
It's so varied. We really are minimizing our trips out. We don't do curbside with groceries, and we try. It varies. Often, my wife is going in on her own, and I'm the getaway driver in the car outside, and kind of just minimizing exposure. By I mean, we are both exposing ourselves to each other. Ooh, wait. Well, you could have expected that. We're husband and wife, right?
Wait a minute. Now, this is a family show.
Not with the president quoted in the intro there. Saying he's going to bomb the out of them. But yeah, it's really strange. So like the only places, I mean, it's funny, so the places we frequent are a Sprouts grocery store and a Specs liquor store, but we do curbside there, though we originally were going in, and it was interesting watching it evolve. And it's still evolving. There's still differences. And then there's a corner store right down from our house that is actually, like a mostly a Hispanic-oriented store with a meat market and other fresh stuff and quite an array of items there. And they seem to be pretty good. The crew there seem to always have their masks on and be wiping stuff down outside and inside. And typically in the past, I'd always see people wearing masks. But I tell you, I was just there a day or so ago. I guess it was Friday. No? Well, anyway, in the last day or so. And wow. So like I'd say only half the people there were wearing masks of the customers. And there were at least 2 gentlemen wearing ankle bracelets.
Ankle bracelets?
Yes. So I'm assuming they're parolees.
Well, we were talking about that the other night, that just down the road from us, here where we live in South Fort Worth, is this federal prison for men. It's over there behind this college I used to go to back in the early 70s, Tarrant County Junior College it was called then. And at that time, the campus for the prison, it wasn't a prison, it was an orphanage. Well, it's been a prison now for some time. And there has been, and this is just a few minutes drive from us, 5 minutes drive max down the highway. Not that I ever go there. But also, the thing is, it is a hot spot for this COVID-19. And it has caused extreme stress in the prison. 9 prisoners, 9 inmates serving time for marijuana charges and whatever have died because while other prisons, county jails and what have you, around the state, country, have been, letting people out on a controlled basis somewhat, nonviolent criminals, I hope. But the federal government has been very slow to act. And they finally, just a few days ago, after 9 deaths, and I don't know how many cases, finally, allowed a compassionate release for certain prisoners, which should have been done weeks ago. And the thing is that people, can, say, well, they're just prisoners, they for marijuana, for armed robbery, this and that, the other. But the thing is that the guards and the employees that work at the prisons are in great danger of being infected by this thing. And they're going to go out and spread it to the community. And right now, here's a study. This just came out in the Washington Post a couple of days ago. Texas leads the country at coronavirus spread. Leads the country. That's terrible.
Yeah.
If it's true, I don't know what to believe anymore. But I look at this map here, which is a pretty good one, but at the New York Times. You can look at the whole nation. It's the America sick map, and you can see the hot spots. The East Coast, New York, New Jersey, and so forth, is terrible. But Texas is down here, not doing so great. Not as bad as the East Coast or the Chicago area or the West Coast. But in Tarrant County, we have had. Wait a minute. That's the wrong county. Yeah. Tarrant. Okay, Tarrant. Almost 5,000 cases of COVID and 144 deaths. And it's much worse over in Dallas, where there have been almost 9,000 cases and 211 deaths. And the other counties where it's bad are down there in Harris County, where Houston is, of course, and also Travis County, where you are. Those are the leading spots. And it looks like the map that San Antonio is beginning to catch up with Austin. So that's what we're looking at here. It's the continuing spread of this thing, but the lockdown is beginning to be let up here in Texas and other places. But it's a gradual thing, and gosh, I've never seen anything like this. People are hopping mad at each other. There are people that they're mad about the lockdown. There are people who are terrified of the virus. And gosh, I got to admit, I'm something of a fence straddler here. I feel like the deer in the headlights, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Except, take it slow and easy. And of course, we hear the conspiracy theories, and I can't discount them. But I think that it's going to take a while to sort this out. And I just hope that not too many more people catch this thing and die, because apparently it's a real virus. It's not a hoax. The question is it as bad as or worse or really than the swine flu, which was really bad at the time? I forget what the figures were in terms of casualties, but that's when Woodstock was held, right in the midst of this, pandemic for swine flu, and nobody died at Woodstock unless it was from, overdose. But
yeah, I was completely unaware of that, and of course, I guess it's a more business capitalist oriented think tank and libertarian oriented think tank that's been out promoting the stories about that, and the mainstream news have covered it and gone, yeah, no, that's true. And it's amazing when you think about that mass gathering, and there was not apparently the level of societal response to that Hong Kong flu pandemic. And but some of the articles say, well, there were actual doctors who flew in specifically to Woodstock because they were concerned that could occur, and they were going to be there trying to help prevent it and or mitigate it if it started happening. But yeah, no, it's interesting. Of course, it's a completely different time now with the mass communications and social media that we have now and all that. So it's a radically different situation, and yet it is a stark historic point of contrast. And I'm a fence straddler too. I actually invoked that image in a social media discussion with our friend Carlos, because I am worried that we're killing the village in order to save it. It really seems like everything that we've done to prevent this has been a terrible, I don't want to say mistake, because I don't think it totally is, and it just infuriates me that we've gotten to this level of discourse where everything's fake or a hoax. And it's absolutely true, as you and I and so many have documented for so many years and so many decades of deep parapolitical research, conspiracy research that's of the best quality, not the trash that has taken over, as is so often the case in any community. Sensationalism sells, but it is disturbing that people are just so quick to believe that they know the truth about this, that, or the other. And I'm friends with good old Mike Hansen on Facebook. He was Alex Jones's number 2 when Alex was just starting out in Access TV here in Austin. Mike Hansen, I don't want to say anything critical of him, but he's always struck me as a warm, genuine person. But I honestly often feel he's a bit too naive. Now, this is the guy who infiltrated Bohemian Grove with Alex Jones,
famously with Alex,
right? Alongside the author of the book, the guy who really stoked him in there, John Ronson or whatever his name is. But anyway, I see Mike posting a lot, about very much in favor of opening up and that this is all a political hoax. And you and I know would be the first to say, and we've said it time and time again, that it's the old Rahm Emanuel, and he wasn't the first to say it. Don't let any good crisis go to waste. This is the time for power hungry a-holes to try and get more power. And I think we
are
see
seeing that.
Yeah,
we are definitely seeing it. Where there have been cases, just to pick out one story that I flipped onto the parapolitical magazine that we have that people should check out. Here's a story about drones. How drones are all over the place, all over the world. New Yorkers, I'm just reading the first paragraph here. New Yorkers strolling along the East River early last month glanced up to see an unsettling sight. A mysterious drone claiming to represent something called the Anti-COVID-19 Volunteer Drone Task Force, barking orders to pedestrians below to maintain social distancing. Please maintain a social distance of at least 6 feet, the drone intoned, according to a report from CBS News, continuing with gloomy warnings like, people, please help stop the spread of this virus and reduce the death toll and steps help save lives. This is happening all over the world.
Yeah.
In cases, drones are great. Drones are delivering medical supplies in Rwanda, for instance, and food in Virginia. And they're hovering over crowds in China to scan for fevers below, which is kind of scary. It's really kind of Orwellian and nightmarish and dystopian, to tell you the truth. And somebody, we mentioned this on the few weeks ago when we did a show, someone is going to benefit from this crisis. Whether the crisis happened spontaneously as a result of whatever, an accident in a lab or a bat did something, I don't know. Somebody's going to make money off of this, and somebody's going to take advantage of it to roll out these police state procedures, these Orwellian, Huxleyan nightmare concepts, and make them reality. And this story just goes on and on. But basically, we've got robots in the sky ordering us to maintain social distance below. Ooh, that's creepy.
Well,
and to wear your mask.
Yeah, well, I thought even creepier were the dog robot drones walking through parks barking the same kinds of thing. I mean, because those things, I mean, it's surreal to have flying saucers, zooming around, barking orders at you, but to have a cybernetic, mechanical, or just robotic dog barking orders at you and how creepily they move. Just throw a banana peel down, though; it'll take them out.
Yeah, yeah. Throw them a cyber bone or something. But the other thing is we're talking about how you got to weigh the effects of the virus, which is deadly, apparently, with the effects of locking down. The impact on the economy, people losing their jobs, people losing their income. Yeah, they're desperate. They want to go back to work. They're willing to risk a virus. And you know what? I understand. The other thing is, here's a story. This is something that's been concerning me for a while. This comes from the National Review, and I've got another one from another source here. It says the same thing. But the headline here is, quote, a year's worth of suicide attempts in the last 4 weeks.
God.
Unquote. California doctor calls for end to lockdown because this is killing people. The lockdown. It's killing the economy. It's killing people. In Tennessee, here's another headline. Suicides outpacing coronavirus deaths in Tennessee, data says. Here's what people dying from suicide. So, how do you weigh these things?
Yeah.
And they're shutting down churches, places of worship, and now they're, issuing rules for how you can, go to church and so forth. And whoa, boy, those things give me the creeps.
Yeah, I mean, with the churches, that's been something I was talking to someone about recently, and I think they should just be like, to me, it all should come down to, well, what are the types of activities that usually occur in these establishments, and can the risks be mitigated under those circumstances? And it's always about how can you change behavior to mitigate the risk, and like with gyms and hair salons, okay, the people are right there. It's with the salon touching you and touching your head and your hair, and is it really that important to you to risk that? Grooming, come on.
I haven't
says
had
the guy who's
I haven't had a haircut in years,
and I love you for it, Mac. But that's
not
one
a necessity.
But with and then gyms, it's like, okay, so it's places where there's often a lot of people, and I guess I believe it's true that you can't necessarily catch it from sweat, though. Obviously, if somebody is breathing heavily from exercise, that's going to be that much more, and that's what the thing with the churches and choirs. If it's really if it's all about respiratory moisture, but I'm telling you, I don't rule anything out. There was an article I read about how bathrooms are going to be changed by all this, and it was like, American toilets and bathrooms are already way behind the times compared to other countries. But they were talking about a study that apparently indicated that even somebody who had already gotten over COVID and was technically not sick or I guess not contagious, that you could still detect the coronavirus up to 30 days afterwards in their poop. And
Yikes.
And then you think about the toilet plume that's we've been known for years. The toilets are amazingly disgusting. That when you flush them, it creates a mist of feces and urine, and it's all over the walls. And it's okay, so does that mean it's that could you catch that, or is it just gross? I don't know. But
you see, this is why I'm so neurotic. For years, I've been trying to avoid public restrooms. I'm like Mr. Monk about things like that. If it looks like it's been someplace not good, then I'm hands off. But yeah, public toilets have got to be the worst. I'm
you gotta go. You gotta go.
Toilet. But when you gotta go, you gotta go.
Yeah.
And at my age, I got to go at unexpected times. But who knows what's going to happen? We hear so many contradictory things.
Yeah.
Can this thing be spread by? Can the virus live on the ground for a week after somebody near was walking? You know, things like that. So many contradictory studies and things, and it's very confusing. It's just so many voices. And with, you know, easing the lockdown and so forth, well, there have been predictions. How's that going to work?
Yeah.
I'm looking at a headline right now from the New York Post. Scientists walk back prediction that U.S. could be coronavirus-free by fall. Well, it doesn't surprise me somehow. China tells U.S. to stop wasting time in coronavirus battle. I don't know. This is from Reuters. And the Chinese are really mad about this thing. The senior Chinese diplomat tells U.S. to stop its virus slander. You started it. You created it. Yeah, whatever. Diplomat also extends sympathy to U.S. with pandemic. Coronavirus worsens already poor China-U.S. ties. And it goes on and on. This is a mess on a global scale. Incredible. And really, no one knows what to do because everything is so contradictory. And you have to, you know, you see a frightening headline, and it can go either way, and read it, and you don't know if the source can be trusted entirely because there's just so much confusion right now.
Right, and there's these stories, and again, the mainstream news is covering some of this, like, you know, these multi-million-dollar hospitals that were created, some of them specifically for this crisis, never saw any use. And okay, piss poor planning. I get it. That shit does happen. You know, it's government after all. I mean, any big organizations, whether they be corporate or governmental, waste lots of money. And you know, you can, and that's of course one of the big things that's been leveled at this administration is that it did such a piss poor job of responding to the crisis as it was coming into awareness. And you know, hindsight 2020, here we are, 2020.
Yeah.
And you know, everything looks like a fool's errand. You know, within minutes of a decision being made. But yeah, it really there's just so much contradictory. And I have a friend who's an EMT who just thinks everybody's being pussies, and I'm shocked at his cavalier attitude. And presumably he's on the front line still, as far as I can tell, and more just like, you know, whatever. And then you know, there's people who are questioning these. The overrunning of the hospitals, and it's like there's only so much you should ever entertain in terms of something being fake. The bigger the lie, the harder it is to pull it off, especially when it involves so many people. There's just, I mean, you know, this. If there's fake COVID crisis manufacturing going on here, it is no Manhattan Project. Come on, it is not going to be able to be covered up. As far as I'm concerned. So it really irks me that there's so much of that crap going on. And I still don't know anybody personally that I've spoken to who has told me that they've been diagnosed. However, I do have a fellow board member of one of my nonprofits, a good old friend of his from high school. Now, he's an older guy, and he's in the at-risk population, but this old friend of his from high school passed away because of it. And, you know, again, this idea of that the numbers are being overinflated because of everything's being called a COVID death. Well, you know, there should be two sets of books. There really should, because as one or two countries have done, you know, it's just like when we, you know, inflict collateral damage and people die because, well, you know, they couldn't have the operation at the hospital because we blew up their power plant, you know, as an act of war, and, you know, or their water treatment plant, and all these other people died, and it wasn't our bombs directly that killed them, but the ripple effect was. And but, you know, I've seen another friend joke that's like, oh yeah, so if I have COVID but I'm alive and then I'm in a car wreck that has nothing to do with it, they're going to call it a COVID death, and I'm like, well, yeah, they probably would.
An underlying cause.
Yeah, and but it can work either way though. I mean, so like, okay, if it's, how do you know really it's the COVID if it's people that have underlying issues like diabetes or whatever? Is it it's the diabetes that was aggravated by COVID? Okay, whatever. Point being, I thankfully yet don't know anybody directly who has been confirmed, though I think I mentioned in the last show, I know at least one person in New York State who believed and had all the symptoms, and it seemed to be hanging on, and of the virility, virulence that everybody ascribes to COVID. And this person's about my age. But then another board member, several members of his family who are on the East Coast have had it and survived, thankfully. But it was really, really tough and hung on for a really long time. And apparently another friend and former board member who I believe lives in Colorado succumbed or not succumbed, succeeded in battling it. So, and these are all people who are older than me. So, yeah, that's just it. We keep being drummed into us that this thing is more dangerous than the Spanish flu, or almost as bad as the Spanish flu. And all I can do is, it's like I saw Roger Daltrey of The Who quoted. He's like, I'm not going to worry about this. He lives out in the country, so he's still going for walks and whatever. He's not going to isolate himself. And well, okay, you probably live in a really nice house out in the country, so that's not as big of an issue for you. But he's a senior, and but what he said that it really rang true with me is like, there are all these experts that are being trotted out saying this on one hand, and then there's all these other ones that are coming out and saying that on the other.
Yeah.
And it really is, you talk about putting masses of humanity in this liminal, very unstable, surreal space of uncertainty and ambiguity, and it's hard to maintain agnosticism and one's sanity, but thankfully, those of us who are privileged with a little bit of luck and all the things that people are privileged by, blah blah blah. I'm sitting here feeling pretty lucky, and I'm just so glad to be able to have a conversation with you, and that you're not. Well, you were coughing a little earlier before the show, but that was just a regular, stuff. So
every morning I wake up with sinus issues, and this is every day. This is any time of the year. Okay, sinus drainage, and I cough. But and I don't think much about it. And after the day moves on, I don't cough anymore very much, but I still do once in a while. But every time I cough, I think, oh my God, I got it. Okay.
Makes me clear my throat real quietly if I'm around other people.
Yeah. I have a very good friend, longtime a cartoonist friend, Mark Langman, who back in the 90s we started out together in the alternative comics scene. He edited the book Buzz, and he contributed to the book that I edited, The Bushman, and we've been great friends. He's now the mayor of Cotati, California, little town up there in the Bay Area. And I posted something on Facebook a few weeks back about this, problem that, every time I cough, I think I've got it, and I'm terrified. I'm in his high risk category, being a senior. And he messaged me, and he said he's my age, and he said that he's been going through the same thing. He's terrified, but as a city leader, he's got to be out there, doing things as a mayor and working with people and everything. But any little symptom at all, like something doesn't feel right here, oh my God, I've done it. That's scary.
Yeah.
You started out talking about how, well, you don't really know anybody that's got it. and I started thinking how, I only know one person, and it's via Facebook, not in real life, but a Facebook friend, good guy, who he got it. And the symptoms were terrible, freakish symptoms, like nothing you ever heard of. I mean, it's just like madness. And he had to go to the hospital, and weeks later, he's finally out, he's doing better. But the symptoms came back, and now they went away again. And I know people via Facebook who their aunt got it and died, or whoever, or somebody, so people are being affected by this. I remember, people don't think about this much anymore, but in the 90s, late 80s and on into the 90s, well into the 90s, there was a pandemic or epidemic, whatever you want to call it. It was AIDS. And it was killing a lot of people. And at first, I thought, well, I don't know anybody with this disease. And I'm talking about this one morning, late 80s, with a coworker on having a coffee break. I said, I don't even know anybody with this disease. She says, oh, yeah, you do know. It's just that you don't know. Right. There was a coworker who had it, and she told me about it, and that was the beginning. Then my brother-in-law got it. More coworker. People died. People were dying all around me. It was horrible. We were going to funerals all the time, my wife and I, because we were involved in the AIDS community. But the thing was, there was a stigma then that with that terrible virus, this HIV thing, you only got it if you were, gay or drug user. And that's not true. We met people and saw them die who were heterosexuals, got it from, or got it somehow. They didn't know how. I mean, this was a real epidemic, and this really killed a lot of people, and we saw it with our own eyes. We marched in the streets of Austin for AIDS help, and we got to we went to meetings with support groups of family members, watched people die and die and die, and now suddenly no one dies of it anymore. They found a cure for HIV. But that was a terrible pandemic, to my mind. And I saw it with my own eyes. But at first, I didn't believe it. I didn't believe, because I didn't know anybody who had it. Well, but the thing was, if you had it, AIDS, there was a stigma attached to it, because you must be a bad person. You got it from, doing something weird, sexually or drugs or whatever. That wasn't even true. Well, I don't know. This isn't quite the same thing, but in the sense of perceptions, and the thing is, at the time, there were conspiracy theories about AIDS. This disease comes out of nowhere. It kills all these people that, supposedly useless eaters. I don't know. I don't know if any of that was ever true. But I know that at the time I took it seriously. I took the disease seriously, and I took the conspiracy theories seriously, but I never knew I still don't know what to believe about AIDS. I don't know what that was about.
Yeah.
But I wonder.
I know, I'm always quick to suspect the powers that be for population control agendas. I really, I know how much I've railed against, overpopulation, and how much liberal family and friends have, and I, do think that humanity has been a blight on the planet more than a good thing. But I know, like everything, there's another side of that. But like specifically with HIV, I know there's now come out, that we've always reported on past claims about it being engineered to take out a very specific population. And it certainly, again, back pre 9/11, the Cheney Bush administration were openly talking about ethnically targeted weapons, but so it just, you can't rule it out. But gosh, so folks, if you've been reading our Flipboard, there's just a ton of news. I can barely keep up with copying all the news links into the posts on the site that I do every few days, where I collect the stuff, the links from the I mean, it's easily 20 to 40 news articles a day.
Yeah, I know.
And so much has happened, and so much more keeps happening. There was this, these big Reopen America rallies. And I say big, they weren't, from some of them, they didn't look that substantial. But, of course, guess who shows up for the one here in Austin but Alex Jones and his his armored vehicle that he's been taking around the country to such big protests. It's a very imposing vehicle. Gee, what does they say about guys with big trucks? Anyway, he, he and all these others are out there. And I honestly, my gut reaction when I see these protests was first, well, God bless them for standing up for what they think is right, and for the other side of this argument. On the other hand, it just pains me no end when I see them so close together with no mask, often with their kids, and then with the guns. And I'm not afraid of guns, but even though I am a survivor of a mass shooting, but it's still, to me, that reeks of terrorism in terms of, it's one thing, I'd be the first to complain if the state or local riot cops came out in their armored equipment and with their automatic rifles and militarized gear and tactics, or snipers up on the roof, which they did for freaking Occupy and everything else. And that's when I'm kind of like, well, gee, that might be a dangerous. You'd make a situation more dangerous by bringing a gun to that situation, but on the other hand, that's where to me it seems more warranted. That when there's the state openly brandishing, but from what I could tell from all the coverage around the country of these other incidents, it was just the protesters who were bringing AR-15s onto the grounds, and in some cases, I think, into the law establishments. But very unnerving and obviously divisive. I mean, more than ever, I see people on both sides, people I know and love, just going at each other's throats, out of fear and righteousness.
Yeah. Everybody feels so right. Everybody's so sure that they're right. And this divisiveness is fed by that kind of, self-righteous, fanaticism on both sides.
Yeah.
You still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. And I was looking for the news article since I brought up, I don't know if I can find it, if it's in our feed, because again, it goes so far back. But there was this article. So Alex was there and he's wading through, I don't think it's going to, no, I can't. It's way too far back, I think. But just a week or so ago, like after that protest, his wife, the mother of his children, was trying to get a judge to give her custody because she's like, look, he just endangered my children by potentially infecting himself, and I know she's, like any parent, she's going to do anything she can to try to get custody. But
boy, I tell you what, that's a nasty custody situation.
Yes.
I've never seen a nastier divorce. I don't think.
Well, well, that's what happens when you become such a celebrity.
Yeah. We have, I've kept the YouTube page open here, and someone, Horst Quick, is the username on YouTube, has made some comments here I might just throw out there. Horst Quick says, by golly, I remember when Austin would empty out when summer came along and UT students would break. And another comment, Another comment, he says, I've social distanced from Austin by about 35 miles. His next comment, I assume it's a he, I don't know, horse quick. No serious analysis is possible without reliable numbers. Even generalizations are iffy. And that's the problem, is we don't really know if we can trust the numbers.
Yeah, I mean, I forget the woman's name, but the woman in the administration who is part of the pandemic team opposite Fauci, I saw her responding to claims about the numbers possibly being too low, and she said, "No, I think we've been very liberal in our accounting." And I was like, "Oh, the choice of words."
Now, that's an interesting choice of words.
Yeah.
Another headline I'm going to throw out there. For-profit Texas Immigrant Detention Center faces major COVID-19 outbreak. This is Dateline, Anson, Texas. I'm not even sure where that is. The Bluebonnet Detention Center in rural West Texas sat empty for years until county officials scored a lucrative agreement before Christmas with Immigration and Customs Enforcement to begin housing immigration detainees here. Now, you were talking about, possibly ethnically directed diseases. Well, that's what this sounds like. And somebody's making money off of this, and it's a private contractor. And it says here in the story, this is the El Paso Times, is the site of one of the biggest coronavirus outbreaks at an immigration detention center in the country. That's frightening. And why? Because somebody's making a buck off of it. And they don't want to let go of those prisoners. And what are they in there? Well, they're being for there because they're illegal immigrants, which is a whole other issue. But my God, that is the kind of stupidity that or is it stupidity?
Yeah. So we've posted a number of articles about the rampant COVID crisis within the jail and prison systems and these detention centers. And thus this is causing the forced release in some cases of people, hopefully the people who shouldn't have been in there in the first place. But apparently I've seen headlines suggesting that some of these rapists and murderers have already committed more of the same kinds of crimes that they were in there for once they've gotten out. That's why I was a little...
Yeah.
I had mixed feelings about seeing the fellows. I mean, whatever, they're at the convenience store in front of me with their ankle bracelets. Okay. I don't know their story.
Yeah, well,
I don't want to judge. But...
Well, crime is of all kinds. We talked about suicide is up, depression, anxiety. These things are up. No question about it. Murder is up. Crimes are up. Every morning I pick up the Fort Worth Star-Telegram and look at it, and there's more crimes than there was a lot up here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area before. Now there's even more. And people are being released who are, mentally not right or whatever, and they go out and they commit crimes. Well, early in the crisis, early in the lockdown, there was a convenience store down in a little small town just south of Fort Worth, down there near Cleveland, where I graduated from high school. I still got a lot of friends there. And a guy walked into a convenience store wearing a surgical mask and not only shot and killed the clerk, but robbed it and got away with it for about 24 hours, and they caught him. But what does that do to facial recognition technology? Because here's a Big Brother, move, facial recognition technology. I almost said that wrong. Rectal. But which they're going to do someday. Okay? But believe me.
The TSA's new way, yes.
That you got to watch them everywhere.
You can't make jokes either. They'll take it. Oh, that's a great idea.
But take it wrong, because if you say it as a joke, it becomes reality the next day. But okay, but what is it? That means, what's the whole point of the mask then? I mean, we've got two agendas here. One is facial recognition technology. There's police state, encroaches continuing, technology and et cetera, drones and all the rest. But at the same time, everybody's got to wear a mask. So how does it work if everybody, including the president, I'm looking at a picture of Donald Trump here on Drudge Report, and he's got a mask on.
Finally.
Everybody's got finally. And the masks don't do any good. That's the thing. I keep hearing
again the contradictory information.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's got to provide some protection. I mean, I know that again the molecules are so small that most of these I don't think can prevent that getting through, but it's got to help. And I just figured, honestly, to me, it's almost just, I don't know. It just depends on the circumstance. It makes it less likely that it's going to spread.
Well, it feels to me like it's something. It may be just a Band-Aid, but I wear the mask mainly just to protect me from people who are, militant about people making masks. Okay, got to wear a mask. Get out of here. People have been thrown out of Walmarts because they weren't wearing a mask. I told you about my sister the other day. I went to a convenience store in Dallas. The stories go on and on. People being physically attacked because they weren't wearing a mask. For that matter, people being attacked because they were wearing a mask. That's the kind of world that we live. The maskers versus the anti-maskers, and So, but I wear a mask for my own personal protection, just to kind of come in under the radar.
It, like I said, it's really been weird to see how the response is rolled out in different communities. I mean, of course, I'm only seeing it here in compared to the rest of Texas, liberal Austin. But it's funny. So you mentioned was a shooting over the mask, or I'm jumping the gun?
Oh yeah. That was some weeks ago, back in the early days of this crisis. There was a convenience store worker who was shot in the head by some guy wanting to rob the store and killed it. And just it didn't even give him a chance. He just blew him away. And he comes in there. He's wearing a mask, thinking, the video won't be able to identify me. Well, he's arrested 24 hours later.
Yeah. So that reminded me of this Lauren Coleman article over at his Copycat Effect Twilight Language blog called Aurora 2020. And he doesn't mention this in this article, but I had sent to him the weird news articles about the Trump material and the early warnings about COVID-19 referred to as the Red Dawn emails. But this Aurora 2020 is titled Twilight Language, Phantasmagoria, Colorado, Aurora, Waffle House, and the Watts Name Game. And it's a very typical Lauren Coleman Twilight Language blog post where he's reporting on yet another weird, violent incident at a Waffle House. But it also has these connections to the Aurora Red Dawn meme, synchromistic connections, and he as he often does is he gives some quotes to give people a context for why synchromysticism is kind of a valid way of looking at things, and it has to do more with how, from a postmodern approach to people's understanding of reality, in terms of its hyper reality. It's like everything you see, your brain, it's like the whole thing about violence on TV. Okay, yes, consciously that these are staged. If it's not actual footage, that it's fake. It's staged. It's fiction. But your brain still perceives acts of violence as acts of violence. People believe in things even though they know Star Wars isn't real. There's plenty of people who really have taken it on as their religion, their mythology. So he quotes a bit about phantasmagoria, form of horror theater that is used one or more magic lanterns to project frightening images such as skeletons, demons, and ghosts onto walls, smoke, or semi-transparent screens. And he quotes, it's kind of weird though, he gives the same quote by two different people, so I wonder if it's somebody quoting somebody else. But we interpret what we see, select the most workable of the multiple choices. We live entirely, especially if we are writers, by the imposition of a narrative line upon disparate images, by the ideas with which we have learned to freeze the shifting phantasmagoria which is our actual experience. Yep, that is the surreality that we all live in. It was like this all along throughout human history, but it becomes more hyper-real every day. And in this incident, he talks about this weird Waffle House incident, and it involves a fellow coming in during the pandemic in Colorado on May 14th, 2020. And the other synchronistic Fortean weirdness is some Fortean researchers back in the day noticed that a lot of strange encounter witnesses had unusual names. You'd think that if phenomena were random and across all populations, you would see lots of Joneses and Smiths and things like that. But what certain Fortean researchers noticed was a predominance of specific not normal names, and one of those uncommon names was Watson. So on the early morning of May 14th, a man named Kelvin Watson, 27, went into an Aurora, Colorado Waffle House on 12880 East Mississippi Avenue without wearing a face mask. He was told several times to wear one due to the coronavirus pandemic, then became belligerent and pulled out a gun. He left and returned with a mask, but he wasn't wearing it over his mouth, and threatened staff at the restaurant, telling the 25-year-old cook, "You better shut the beep up before I blow your brains out," while allegedly displaying a gun, police said in the affidavit. According to witnesses, he told the cook, "I can blow your brains out right now." A waitress suspected Watson was high. Watson left, and police were called, but the victim refused to press charges at the time. The next night, on May 15th, Watson returned to the restaurant and again demanded he be served while not wearing a mask. Yada, yada, yada. He slaps the cook across the face, and the cook runs out of the restaurant's back door, calls police, and Watson follows the victim, making numerous statements to the effect of, "You better shut the fuck up and serve me." And so it gets stranger and stranger. So during the investigation, Aurora police also learned that he was a suspect in a Denver shooting on April 23rd, 2020, where he reportedly shot up Wyatt's towing facility for towing his BMW. No one was injured in that shooting. Anyway, it's just, and so there's a couple of different incidents that he apparently was involved with, and they let him out. So,
well, why not?
So they arrested him, and on May 21st, Watson was already released. Charged with attempted murder in the Aurora Waffle House shooting, Kevin Watson was out of jail soon after his arrest. And apparently they're saying it was a bond error. Like he should have been issued a bond of $500,000, but it was only set at $100,000. Anyway, goodness gracious. What a world.
Well, what a world, what a world. That was in a film, The Wizard of Oz, Margaret Hamilton, that's the witch, the Wicked Witch. Since this crisis started, China has been seen has been perceived as the origin point for this terrible disease. And who knows? I don't know what to do anymore. But I've got a couple of headlines here. Wuhan lab had 3 live bat coronaviruses, says China state media. The Chinese Virology Institute at the center of U.S. allegations that may have been the source of the COVID-19 pandemic has 3 live strains of bat coronavirus on site, but none match the new global contagion, this director says. Well, that's comforting. Scientists think COVID-19, which first emerged in the central Chinese city of Wuhan and has killed more than 340,000 people worldwide, originated in bats and could have been transmitted to people via another mammal. And there's another one, speaking of bats, Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Batwoman. Okay, here's the headline. China's Batwoman warns coronavirus is just tip of the iceberg. Xi Zhengli, a virologist renowned for her work on coronavirus and bats, said in an interview on Chinese state television that viruses being discovered now are, quote, just the tip of the iceberg, unquote, and called for international cooperation in the fight against epidemics. Known as China's Batwoman, the deputy director of the Wuhan Institute of Virology said research into viruses needs scientists and governments to be transparent and cooperative, and that it is very regrettable, that's a quote, when science is politicized. And last quote from her. The story goes on and on. Just to get this last quote, quoting. If we want to prevent human beings from suffering from the next infectious disease, the next one, they've already got one lined up apparently. If we want to prevent human beings from suffering from the next infectious disease outbreak, we must go in advance to learn of these unknown viruses carried by wild animals in nature and give early warnings, she said. If we don't study them, there will be possibly another breakout. So now it's all, being blamed on the animals. Bats. Do they still have the bat flyover in Austin down Town Lake?
So yeah, they still live under the bridge. That was going to be one of the places our friends for Paramania were going to go see. And there's the bat sculpture, a weather vane, wind vane there, right in front of the Yeti Cooler World Headquarters, right there at the Congress Avenue Bridge, right by the Austin American Statesman facility there.
It's right there. I only went to the bats come out every evening towards sundown. And it's a big attraction and has been for a number of years. The bats just started spontaneously living there under the bridge, the Congress Avenue Bridge, and it became a tourist attraction. I only went once, and there were all those bats in there under the bridge, sleeping upside down. And I went there with my current wife, Diane, and my nephew, Hal. He was visiting us that summer. And we went into there, and there's a huge crowd getting fly out. And like most of the crowd, we wanted to go out there and get a really good viewpoint. And so we, kind of walked down to the bridge. They wanted to see them coming right out over us. And when the bats came out, they all peed on us. And people were running from the pee-pee. It was like rain. And you're not supposed to do that.
Yeah, well, it stinks.
Well, now, it's not just, bat urine, but possible, bats, carrying a terrible disease around. And I don't know. For all we know, that could be a cover story.
Yeah. So that area, anywhere that bats roost, it's really
Need
stinky.
a shower. Learn.
I remember I was swimming.
So there's that. There's still this murky question: what was going on in China?
Yeah. I was just thinking of back. That was reminding me of the bats. Watching the bats was reminding me of being back at a girlfriend's.
Go ahead.
I think the computer's
still
bogging.
there?
Yeah, I'm still here, Mac. The computer's bogging down. I think it may be causing you to not hear me as easily. Anyway, well,
did I just lose your audio?
No, Mac. I'm still here. But we're just past 8 o'clock anyway, so I think we're going to wind it down anyway. Any last comments before we wrap up the show?
Good.
Okay. I think you're only hearing a delay of me at this point.
What? Losing part of your audio.
Yeah, I don't know. The computer looks like it's maxing out for some reason. So, yeah, I think we're going to wrap up. Any final comments was what I was asking, if you can hear me.
Oh, gosh, I don't know. Final comments. Well, here's hoping that the unlockdown goes well. I do believe that, as I said, I'm a fence straddler, but I have to weigh the effects of the virus itself against the effects of the pandemic as a political and economic issue, and that's starting to worry me a little more. And I feel like people's emotions are being manipulated. Our fear, when people aren't thinking, what do you got? You got a spooked herd. So there's that to consider. At the same time, I do believe it's a real virus. I don't think it's a hoax, but I do have to wonder, like what you said earlier, never let a good crisis go to waste.
Indeed. Well, Mack, thank you so much for joining me tonight. It's been too long, and hopefully we can do this a little more frequently and regularly. And I just really want to thank everybody for tuning in, and we'll have the podcast archive of this up. And we have actually been streaming live over on anomalyradio.com, the stream that I've been, the web radio stream that I've been doing for 20 years now. Managed to remember to get the stream, the audio stream going. So folks over there, if you were listening, you weren't watching over on YouTube, but that's fine. That's how we started. It was all originally just audio anyway. So just having some fun here with the YouTube channel. And thank you, Mack, for everything. And be safe, folks.
Well, thank you, and you be safe, Smiles, and everyone be safe and stay healthy out there.
Good night.
Good night.